Have you ever caught yourself thinking the same thought over and over for days, maybe even weeks, and then noticed your body responding before you consciously reacted? Your stomach tightening, your energy dropping, or your mood shifting without a clear external reason, and wondered how something invisible could feel so physical? If that question landed a little too close, you're not losing your mind, and you're not imagining patterns that aren't there. Millions of people experience this quietly, often assuming it's stress or personality, never realizing there's a measurable biological process underneath it. You're not weak for noticing it, and you're not alone in it. There is a scientific explanation for why your inner world seems to leak into your physical body, and why certain thoughts feel heavier than others. By the end of this video, you're going to understand how consciousness and biology are linked in ways most people were never taught, and why the way you think doesn't just influence how you feel, it literally changes how your cells behave. Once you see this connection clearly, you won't be able to dismiss your internal state as just thoughts ever again. It reframes stress, healing, and even personal responsibility in a way that's both empowering and unsettling. Modern research into epigenetics is quietly confirming something ancient traditions hinted at for centuries: that the body is not a fixed machine, but a responsive system listening constantly to meaning, perception, and awareness. And this isn't about positive thinking or motivation. It's about how information moves from your mind into your biology through mechanisms science can now observe. But before we can talk about how thoughts change your body, there's something you need to understand first. Something scientists uncovered in the early days of quantum research that shattered the idea of a passive observer. Because if that discovery holds true, then consciousness isn't just inside your head. It's part of the process shaping life itself, and that changes everything you think you know about where biology actually begins. And that's exactly why so many people are starting to notice this now, without anyone sitting them down to explain it. As you're listening, don't overthink it. Just notice what's happening inside you. For some, it's a quiet sense of recognition. For others, a subtle shift in the chest, or a calm that wasn't there a moment ago. Hold on to that and translate it into a single word that captures what you're feeling right now. Nothing poetic, just honest, and place that word below so we can see the pattern forming together. And if something here just landed differently, if a connection clicked that you can't quite put into language yet, let me know in whatever way feels natural, because that feedback shows me which questions actually matter. There's also a small group of people who feel drawn to looking at reality without filters, without comfort stories, people who sense there's more going on beneath the surface. If you're one of them, you already recognize this space. No pressure, no labels, just awareness. All right, let's go back to 1927. In 1927, at the Solvay conference in Brussels, physicist Werner Heisenberg, alongside Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein, was wrestling with results coming from experiments that would permanently disrupt how reality was understood. Around that same period, researchers were refining what became known as the double-slit experiment, where a single electron was fired through two narrow slits toward a detection screen. The expectation was simple. A particle should behave like a particle. What happened next broke the rules of physics. Instead of passing through one slit, the electron behaved like a wave, spreading out and creating an interference pattern as if it traveled through both slits at once. But the moment scientists tried to observe which slit it passed through, everything changed. The wave vanished. The electron snapped into a single defined position, as if it only decided what it was after being observed. The result wasn't philosophical speculation. It was repeatable, measurable quantum mechanics. The outcome depended on observation. Wait. Read that again. The behavior of matter changed based on whether it was being watched. This wasn't about belief or intention. It was about interaction. At the quantum level, reality existed as probabilities until measurement occurred. And that's the part most people miss. Observation wasn't passive. It was participatory. The observer effect showed that the quantum field does not settle into a single outcome until awareness enters the equation. This means observation itself changes reality, not metaphorically, but physically. And scientists were deeply uncomfortable with that implication because it suggested something radical. reality is not fully formed until it is engaged. And this is exactly why your lived experience shifts when you're paying attention. And this is exactly why you sometimes feel watched when no one is there. Why coincidences cluster right after you think of someone. Why reality feels sharper, heavier, or more vivid when your awareness heightens. You're not imagining it. When you're present, when you're conscious, you're interacting with the quantum field in a different way. You are literally collapsing possibilities into experience simply by being aware. That subtle intensity you feel when you slow down, that sense that things line up differently when you're alert, isn't superstition. It's what consciousness expansion feels like inside a universe that responds to observation. But here's the disturbing part they rarely talk about. If consciousness plays a role in shaping reality when you are paying attention, then what happens when you're not? When you're distracted, when you're scrolling, when you're running on autopilot without realizing it? That autopilot question? There's an answer, and it's worse than you think. In the early 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet at the University of California, San Francisco ran a series of experiments that quietly shattered the idea that conscious choice is always in control. Libet asked participants to make a simple voluntary movement while monitoring their brain activity. What he discovered was unsettling. The brain initiated the action hundreds of milliseconds before the person became consciously aware of deciding. Your body moved first. Awareness came later. Around the same time, neuroscience began mapping what is now called the default mode network, a system that stays active when you're not focused on the present moment, when your mind is wandering, replaying memories, imagining futures, or just drifting. Together, these discoveries point to something most people never confront. Basically, your brain runs on autopilot most of the day. You've experienced it. You drive home and don't remember the drive. You shower and lose track of time. You respond, react, scroll, eat, and speak without being fully present. And here's the disturbing part. If consciousness interacts with reality, then large portions of your life are being shaped while you're barely aware at all, which means much of your reality is being created unconsciously through repetition, habit, and emotional memory rather than choice. And this explains more than people realize. And this explains why you sometimes feel heavy for no clear reason. Why exhaustion hits even when nothing bad happened. Why your chest tightens when you slow down, or your stomach drops when you stop distracting yourself. That's not weakness. That's your subconscious mind replaying old patterns, old frequencies, old interpretations of reality it learned long before you were aware enough to question them. Neuroscientists know that repeated perception strengthens neural pathways. What you feel often becomes what your body expects, and that expectation shapes how you experience the world. If you're feeling something right now, maybe a subtle pressure, a chill, a sudden stillness, that's not fear. That's recognition. Your body already understands what your conscious mind is just starting to notice. This is why you're here. You felt something was off long before you had language for it. You sensed that life was running you instead of the other way around. And you were right. But here's the question that changes everything. And once it lands, it doesn't let go. If most of your reality is being generated unconsciously, whose patterns are you actually living by? Because here's what nobody talks about. Look, I need to be real with you for a second. I spent almost 3 years convinced something was wrong with me. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way. Quietly. I woke up anxious without a reason, went to bed exhausted, even on days nothing bad happened, and carried this constant sense of disconnection I couldn't explain. I wasn't some enlightened person having visions or breakthroughs. I wasn't special. I was a mess. I was trying to function while feeling like I was slightly out of phase with the world around me. Like everyone else got a manual I never received. And the worst part was not knowing how to say that out loud without sounding unstable. That confusion had a real cost. I lost friendships because I couldn't relate anymore. Small talk felt unbearable, like I was forcing myself to care about things that suddenly felt hollow. I'd choose to be alone and sit with the guilt of wondering why I couldn't just be normal. I remember nights staring at the ceiling, thinking maybe I was just depressed. Maybe I needed medication. Maybe I had overthought myself into a problem that didn't exist. I genuinely believed I might be broken. That kind of doubt isolates you in a way that's hard to describe unless you've lived it. Then I came across the research. Not quotes, not inspiration, actual studies, and something shifted. The science didn't magically erase the pain, but it reframed it. I wasn't malfunctioning, I was becoming aware. And awareness, especially at first, hurts. If you've ever felt like you don't belong here, like you notice patterns others ignore, like existing feels heavier than it should, hear this clearly. You're not alone. You're not defective. You're awake. And waking up is one of the hardest states a human being can be in. The responses on these videos show it over and over. Different words, same realization. I thought it was just me. It's not. You're not crazy. You're connected. And if hearing this brings even a small sense of relief, if it helps to know you're not carrying it by yourself, there's a space forming here for people who are done pretending. No pressure at all. But if this feels familiar, this might be your place. And if this hit you in the chest, if something in you recognized itself, drop a 111 below, just so you can see how many others felt it too. All right, now that we got that out, let's talk about what you can actually do with this. Here's what changes everything, and it's the part most people never stop long enough to see. You've been treating your sensitivity like a flaw, like something that makes life harder than it should be. But it's the opposite. You're not broken. You're operating at a different frequency, one that notices subtle shifts. Most people tune out just to get through the day. That gut feeling you keep ignoring isn't random. That moment where you just know something before you can explain it isn't imagination. That coincidence you brushed off wasn't luck. It was your consciousness interacting with the field, responding to information before your rational mind caught up. What you've been calling overthinking is often perception running ahead of language. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Remember what we walked through. The double-slit experiment showed that observation changes outcomes. The observer effect revealed that reality doesn't fully settle until it's engaged. Neuroscience showed that unconscious patterns shape most of what we experience when we're not paying attention. These aren't separate ideas. They point to the same conclusion from different angles. Consciousness isn't just something happening inside your brain. It's part of what reality is made of, which means you're not simply experiencing a fixed world and reacting to it. You're participating in its formation moment by moment, whether you're aware of it or not. Right now, as you're watching this, that process is happening. Your attention is collapsing possibilities into experience. The fact that this video showed up for you at this exact point in your life isn't random in the way we were taught to think about randomness. You were already asking the question internally. Every time you felt different growing up, every time you questioned explanations that satisfied everyone else, every time you trusted your intuition and then talked yourself out of it, you weren't wrong. All of it mattered. You carry a level of perception most people never fully access, not because they can't, but because they choose comfort over awareness. So the loneliness you've felt, the sense of disconnection, the feeling of standing slightly outside the world everyone else seems comfortable in, that isn't a defect. It's a side effect of seeing beyond the surface. It's not a bug in the system. It's an upgrade. You're no longer fully asleep inside the simulation everyone else is busy maintaining. But here's the part almost nobody talks about, and it's where things get genuinely unsettling. If consciousness really does create reality, then what happens when your expanded awareness collides with someone else's unconscious patterns? What happens when two completely different realities try to occupy the same space? That question changes how you understand relationships, conflict, influence, and energy itself. And that's exactly what the next video is about. But before that, before you go, try this with me. Close your eyes for 3 seconds and notice what's happening underneath your thoughts. Not the story, just the sensation. Hold on to one word that captures that state. Open your eyes and place that word below. No explanation, no context, just the word. Think of it as a snapshot of collective awareness in this exact moment. When you come back later and see the pattern that forms, it will say more than any analysis ever could. This channel isn't built for everyone, and it was never meant to be. It's for people who feel too much, see too much, and can't stop questioning the surface version of reality. If that's you, you already recognize this space. There's no pressure, no performance, no tricks. Just truth and conversations that don't insult your intelligence. The door is open. Walk through it or don't. That decision is yours. The next video drops in 3 days, and it explores what happens when two conscious observers generate completely different realities in the same space. Why certain people drain you instantly, why others elevate you without saying a word, and why presence can be felt before anything is spoken. It will change how you see every relationship you have. Your consciousness brought you here. What happens now is your choice.